Welcome to Red-tastic. Story 1. I'm 28 male and my girlfriend, 26 female, has always had an overbearing, controlling relationship with her parents. They hate me, mostly because I refuse to cater to their every whim. It's been a source of tension for years now, and it's really started to weigh me down. They've always tried to control every aspect of her life, and she never stands up to them, always taking their side no matter how unreasonable they are. Some examples. They constantly criticized my career, saying I'm not good enough because I don't make as much as her dad or her sister's husband, who literally does everything her parents ask, like a doormat. Her dad even suggested I take lessons from the sister's husband on how to be more accommodating to their family's needs. They have pressured me to help them around their house, even expecting me to drop everything on weekends to do tasks for them, painting rooms, fixing their car, mowing their lawn, stuff that has nothing to do with me. I refused because I have my own life and responsibilities, and ever since then, they have hated me for not being family-oriented. They have tried to dictate how I should treat my own family, suggesting I shouldn't spend time with my parents during holidays because they deserve all of our time. Her parents have tried to force me to run errands for them multiple times. Once, they told me to come over and help them clean out their garage. I politely declined because I had other commitments that day, and they told my girlfriend I was lazy and disrespectful. Instead of standing up for me, she agreed with them, saying that I should have helped to keep the peace. Her dad tried to dictate how I should spend my money, suggesting that I prove myself by buying an expensive gift for my girlfriend. When I refused, my girlfriend got upset with me and said I should try harder to get along with her parents. A year ago, my girlfriend and I planned a weekend getaway together. When her parents found out, they threw a fit because they hadn't approved the trip. They convinced her that it was inappropriate for us to go without their blessing, and she ended up canceling on me at the last minute. My girlfriend has never once defended me in any of this. She always just says, "That's how they are. I can't change them," or "I'm used to it," and brushes it off. I've brought it up to her many times, but she just shuts down or makes excuses for their behavior. About a month ago, we had a big argument because I refused to do yet another random favor for her parents. They wanted me to help them move furniture, and when I said I couldn't, they blew up at her. And she ended up going no contact with me for an entire month. No texts, no calls, nothing. I tried everything to reach her, but she just ghosted me, obviously bending to her parents' will. It hurt a lot, and I was left wondering what the hell happened to our relationship. Now, after a full month of silence, she suddenly contacted me. She had an accident last week and fell down the stairs, resulting in a leg injury. She's currently in a wheelchair and says she needs help. She wants to move in with me so I can help her out while she recovers. She says she's finally ready to move in with me, something I've been asking about for 2 years, but her parents always said no. But she says she wants me to get her parents' permission first because it's the right way to start this milestone in our lives. Honestly, I'm rethinking everything. This is the first time she's contacted me since cutting me off, and it's only because she needs something from me. I'm supposed to go and prove myself to her parents just so she can move in. I'm also irked by the fact she never wanted to move in with me while she could walk, always using her parents as an excuse. So what's changed now? I love her, but I'm rethinking my relationship. I feel her ghosting me for a full month is just so disrespectful and immature. I had honestly thought she had moved on for good. I'm also not looking forward to constantly having to prove myself to people who will never approve of me and having a partner who never stands up for me or our relationship. I don't want to be like her sister's husband, constantly bending over backwards to meet unreasonable demands just to keep the peace. Am I being unreasonable for not wanting her to move in with me nor asking her parents for permission? Should I go through with it because she's injured and needs support? Or is this just another sign that our relationship isn't healthy? Update. After reading your comments and spending a lot of time reflecting on the situation, I decided to take a step back from the relationship. It hurt a lot, but I couldn't ignore how toxic everything had become. I had to acknowledge that this relationship wasn't working and that it likely never would as long as she let her parents control every aspect of our lives. So I decided to ghost her. After all, she did the same to me for an entire month, with no regard for my feelings. I figured that if she wanted me only when she was in need, then I didn't owe her anything more than what she had shown me. Well, after a few days of ignoring her messages and calls, she really ramped it up. She started calling and texting non-stop, leaving messages that ranged from pleading to downright cussing me out. She kept saying that her parents were driving her crazy and that I should just take her away from them. She never took any responsibility for the role she played in letting them have control over her life. She wanted me to swoop in like a knight in shining armor, but I just couldn't do it anymore. Eventually, I decided it was time to make things clear. I texted her back and told her we were done. I told her that our time apart made me realize how much I despised being in a relationship where I was constantly disrespected. And I wasn't going to keep proving myself to people who clearly didn't want me around. I was tired of being treated like a problem, and I was tired of the lack of support from her. It was over. Not long after I sent the breakup text, my phone rang, and it was a father. I was shocked but not entirely surprised. He went off at me, calling me disingenuous, irresponsible, and a coward for abandoning his daughter after years together. He said that I had no right to be with her if I wasn't willing to take on the responsibility of caring for her now. I told him that since he thought so little of me, he could find a son-in-law who met his standards. I wasn't going to spend my life groveling for their approval. I hung up after that and felt a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Since then, I've blocked both her and her family. It's been a tough few days. I won't pretend that I don't still have moments where I miss her or wonder if I made the right choice. I did love her, and part of me probably always will, but I know I deserve to be treated better than an errand boy or a backup plan. I want a partner who stands up for me, who chooses me without hesitation, and who doesn't need to get someone else's approval to be with me. I feel like I can finally breathe without constantly worrying about what hoops I'll have to jump through next. I've started reconnecting with friends and focusing on myself, and while I know the road ahead won't be easy, I'm hopeful for the future. I know I deserve a healthier relationship, and maybe one day I'll find that. Thank you all for the advice and the support. It helped me see the situation for what it really was, and I'm finally moving on. I'm really happy you decided to end things with your girlfriend, OP. I can't start to imagine how difficult that must have been for you. It was a step you needed to take. You and your ex-girlfriend were going nowhere. And even if you guys did, it wouldn't be just you two. It would be the four of you. You, your girlfriend, and of course her parents, who have decided they want to make life miserable for anyone their daughters are into. I understand parents being involved in a relationship, especially one that has lasted years, but your ex-girlfriend's parents are something out of a nightmare. But your ex not supporting you was definitely what ended your relationship. If she had your back and supported you, you two could have still made your relationship work. Story 2. Am I the a-hole for not wanting my neighbors to use my unused driveway? I'm on the fence about this one. I'm not sure if I'm upset over nothing. I live in a rented semi-detached house. My new neighbors, who are renting out the other side of the semi-detached, different landlords, have a large Dodge Ram truck that doesn't fit in their driveway, which causes the truck to overhang onto my walkway to my front door. That irks me, but I can easily go around it, so I haven't bothered to bring it up. They also drive across my driveway to get to theirs. Again, that isn't the main problem, just another thing to add to what mildly annoys me. I do understand that their vehicle is large, the wife is pregnant, and they have a toddler, so parking in the driveway is a lot better for them than parking on the street, where their car wouldn't obstruct my walkway. What I am most upset about is that they use my driveway for their friends to park when they visit. I don't have a car and rarely do my friends drive to my place, but to me, it feels like they're invading my space and using property I pay rent for as their own. When their friends aren't using it, they have their kids play there. Normally, I would just ask them not to do that, but I don't own the house and also have never spoken to them, so I don't want our first interaction to be a complaint. It wasn't them, but one of their friends who used my driveway who loudly complained. I heard it clearly from inside the house, to his wife, that my house was trashy. Admittedly, it did have a ton of junk out front because other tenants in my house had just moved out that weekend and left the porch full of their garbage and old furniture. That pissed me off and made me decide I did not want anyone using the driveway, if they were not living here or was one of my guests. Again, I can see why they use the spot because we live on a busy street and their friends have young children as well. Am I the a-hole for not wanting my neighbors to feel entitled to space I rent but do not use? It's a massive convenience for them as they have young children and are pregnant. Edit. I just found out that the houses weren't designed to have driveways. That explains why they are so small, and that the neighbors have a fire hydrant in front of their driveway and their curb doesn't dip in front, which is why they drive over my lot. Not sure if that makes me more or less of an a-hole. Update. Am I the a-hole? My neighbors were driving over and parking on my driveway, so I got my landlord to put a stop to it. This is an update to the post I made almost 2 years ago. So for over a year, I put up with it. I would tell them to move their truck if the overhang was excessive, and they would tell me they would do it later. It wouldn't happen. The summer wasn't so bad, and I put up with it, but last winter was a doozy, and there was so much snow. They would drive over the fresh snow on my driveway throughout the day while I was at work, and by the time I was home to shovel, it would be compacted and icy. So I had to spend hours clearing it, or else I would risk being fined by the city and not have my mail delivered to me. Light uncompacted snow could be cleared within an hour, but when compacted, it would take me well over 2 to 3 hours and a ton of salt, which puts my plants at risk. I was getting pissed. Then in the spring, I noticed that my walkway was sinking and flooding, so I couldn't go in or out of my house without getting soaked. The sinking stones were in perfect alignment with their tires, so I asked my landlord if they had an easement. He said that they didn't and they shouldn't be driving over it. I was on good terms with their landlord, so I told him my grievances and that my landlord confirmed there was no easement. He responded by saying that his tenants will be more careful of the overhang. It continued for a few more months, so I told my landlord I wanted the problem solved as I had already reached out to the neighbors and their landlord. I mentioned in my previous post that my landlord is hot-headed, and sure enough, he went nuclear. Instead of talking to the neighbors, he installed a barrier without notifying them. Just suddenly one day, they didn't have access to a driveway. Now, here is where I need help determining if and where I might be the a-hole. The neighbor's landlord reached out to me asking why there was a permanent barrier and that his tenants have 2 toddlers, and they need the driveway. I told him to contact my landlord. My landlord ended up telling him he only did it to make me happy, and he will remove the barrier if I say so. Thing is, my problem is resolved, so now I don't want it removed. But everyone else is unhappy with the barrier. The other tenants in my house think I'm being callous because the neighbors now have to park on the street, and it's unfair as they have 2 small children. The barrier is also really hideous. So, how much of an a-hole am I that I don't want to negotiate this anymore? I don't want the ugly barrier gone, but I wouldn't mind a more attractive fence. My problem is solved, and I really don't feel I should be more considerate of them just because of the inconvenience it created. You're not the a-hole, OP. Your neighbors are. You spoke to them about how inconvenienced you were with them parking in your driveway, but they refused to change or do anything about it. They didn't offer an apology for making you work 3 hours or longer to get rid of the snow they got into your driveway. And overall, they were really bad, inconsiderate people. Your landlord and theirs suck. Their landlord should have done something when you told him about what was happening, and your landlord shouldn't have said he only installed the barrier because of you. What about the damages they were causing to the property? What about the fact that the driveway doesn't belong to them to even start with? Your neighbors got what they deserved. Let them go through the stress for once. Now for some comments. You are definitely not the a-hole. Their kids are not your problem. They could have moved in somewhere where they would have their own driveway. You tried to talk to them and they've ignored you. You've had a lot of extra work because of them. Like having to shovel compacted snow and ice. Did they ever offer to shovel? I doubt it. Now your walkway is sinking, so more damage and more inconvenience. Do not let them remove the barrier. Not an a-hole. If the barrier is removed, won't you have the same problems you talked to them about before? Is your landlord aware of the damage to the driveway? Is there some sort of agreement your landlord, not you, can come to that will let them park off the street while forcing you to run an obstacle course to get to your door? Is there any reason their landlord can't expand their driveway? You're not an a-hole at all. The neighbors are, obviously, huge a-holes for repeatedly driving and parking in the space that you are paying for. Your landlord is also a douche for throwing you under the bus for the barrier. It's his property to protect, and he also presumably signed a contract with you that you would be renting and therefore have access to the space. You can't rent an apartment to someone and then after the fact be like, oh, by the way, this guy's going to be living in your kitchen while you're here. You might suggest a more attractive barrier, but you're not an a-hole for wanting access to your own driveway.